Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. I hope you're doing well. It's been a little bit since our last video. We had the Resin Rose BJD Expo 2025 and it was a lot of fun. It was so fun to be able to see so many of you and to visit, and you're all so kind and so sweet, so that was a lot of fun. And while we were there, my daughter was with me. She was my helper, and she actually decided to dip her toes into the BJD hobby with the purchase of a pair smart dolls. So we'll put a picture here. And she's just lovely, but she just decided that was the doll she needed. And so she was able to get the doll and an extra set, a package of hands. So there's several pair of hands, and then a wig. And then from other vendors at the show, she was able to get a beginning of a little wardrobe. So she was able to get some clothes. And then when we got home, we had fun because we were looking through my bin of clothing, and a lot of my styles are a little bit oversized anyway. So they were able to work for her pair doll without having to get a pattern ready for her right away. So a lot of the outfits worked for her, and she picked some things out of my stash. So that was kind of fun, just letting her have some fun and picking out clothes. So I was able then to have some time to make a basic pattern set for that doll. It's already on the website. Many of you have maybe already seen it, like in various Facebook groups, because I try to keep everybody updated with anything that's new, or on my Facebook page. But it is on the website, and it's on the blog, and it's also on the Third Scale female pattern page. So you'd be able to find it there if you're wanting that basic set. And just a reminder about the basic sets in case you're new. Those patterns are not meant to sew an item of clothing. Rather, they are for drafting your own designs. I do include a seam allowance, just as a reminder that that needs to be included. So if you're designing something specifically with the seam lines, you're going to start with the seam lines on the pattern pieces, but then be sure that you add your seam allowance. So I do include those. And then also sometimes if you're doing like underwear or swimwear and you want a really tight fit, if you're going to do leggings that you want a really tight fit, then you could pretty much cut those out and sew them if that's what you're wanting. But as far as like a loose button-up shirt or something like that, you'll have to add that ease onto the pattern pieces as you design. So it's just a starting point. It's drafted directly from the doll. There's pictures on the blog. So there's not a lot of extra room in those pattern pieces. They're just for you to have a starting point to design. Then I got sick. And so I don't know if it's our weather here in Oregon has just been not my favorite. I'll say that. Some people love it. I don't. But not only have we had a lot of hot weather that's not really the norm traditionally for here, but it's been up and down. So we'll have a week of really hot weather, and then it'll drop down into the 70s, and then it'll rain, and then it'll get back up into the 90s, and then it'll be 102, and then it's just been up and down and up and down. And I think that fluctuation in the barometric pressure, along with weird viruses that are coming forth in this weird weather that we're having, have kind of taken a toll on me. So I was out of work for a week with a temperature, and so even though I was home, I wasn't doing any of the sewing projects that I wanted to do. So I finally had some time this weekend. I feel a little bit better, so I'm catching up on things that I needed to do. I've gotten a couple batches of soap done because I have to get it ready so it has enough time to cure before the holidays. So I've been able to do that. I was able to sew up a couple projects for me personally, a pair of pants and some pajamas, and so I got those done and cleared out of my sewing room. Then while I was not feeling well, of course, everything just piles up on my sewing table. That was a dive. So I had to clean all that up, put things back where it belongs, put fabric back where fabric goes, and yeah, and so then I got to start on a bunch of wigs for the upcoming Wagon Wheel Dollars show in September. That's coming up in a couple weeks, so I have some wigs that I'm working on to replenish my stock. And I thought, okay, so now I'm in a good spot. I have a clear table. I'm going to cut out the pieces and start in on an outfit for my lovely Kadira. So this pattern was posted on the website a while ago, and I'm just now being able to actually start getting it put together. So what we're going to do is the coat will be this really pretty, it's like a buttery cream color. It's a faux leather vinyl. That this will be the coat. It's a long coat with like a cropped front edge, and then it gets long with like a tail in the back, and there's back yoke. But so the coat will be this, but it does have a high collar that is going to be this sparkly stuff. So this is going to be on the collar, and the sparkle will be on the front and the back of the collar. So that's going to be the coat. Then the gown, let's see here, will be, I have a really pretty embellished brocade here in golds, with some rose gold in there, and then various colors of gold. There's a real orangey gold and then more of a yellowy gold, but really pretty fabric. So the gown is going to be this, and then the ruffle on the gown will also be the sparkly fabric that will be in the color of the coat. So that will kind of tie it together. And I had a little bit extra of the pieces I was working with to make a bag. So there'll be a purse, handbag to go with. And so yeah, so I thought we could go ahead and start on the outfit for Kadira and see how this goes. So I will go ahead and move everything up for the machine. It is starting to get warm again, so you may hear a rumble when we start sewing, and that's the air conditioner. So if you hear that rumble in the back, that's what that is. But we'll go ahead and get started on the outfit for Kadira. I want to start with the dress, and the dress is pretty simple and straightforward. So this is the skirt pieces, so we have a front and two back pieces. Then the top, the bodice part, is just a strapless top. And so I did it that way so that it wouldn't have a lot of bulk because the coat is going to go over the top of it. So it will be lined, so I have my lining or facing pieces cut just from a cream off-white muslin, and then the pieces of the fabric for the front. So it's going to be pretty simple, just like other like bustiers that we've sewn here on the channel. So the pieces, let's grab our paper so it's easier to see, will be sewn. So this is the center front, then we have the sides, then we have center back. Is that right? Okay, there we go. Here, and then center back, match up my pieces. There we go. Okay, so we're going to be sewing all these edges together of both the fabric and then of the lining or facing as well. So the facing will be sewn like this, and then let's match our shapes here like that. And then once those are sewn together, then I will be going up the back and across the top edge to put this and this together. I will press the seam allowances open just so there's less bulk, or I will press the seam allowances of the fabric one way and of this the other way. I'm not sure yet. Probably I'll just press them open and then sew along the top. So that's all we have to do for the bodice. There's no sleeves or anything that we need to worry about. And then the skirt will have a ruffle attached. So first I'm going to sew the pieces together at the side seams. So here's our fabric. So it'll go this way and like this. Yep. So we'll sew the skirt pieces together. Then I will be gathering this to put the ruffles on along this edge. So we'll put the bottom ruffle on first and then the top ruffle. And I'm thinking I probably will I'll probably go ahead and just have a back seam done and then put the ruffle around it so that I don't have the ruffle sewn into the back seam. So we'll get there when we get to that part, because I don't want the ruffle to be sewn down at any point to the skirt. So that will be one thing we'll kind of get done when we get there. And then of course it's just hemmed, and then this edge will be gathered to fit the waist of the bodice. So it's pretty straightforward. There'll be a little bit of serging to finish some of these edges because this fabric frays really bad. It likes to come apart, so we do need to do finishing on the edges. And yeah, and that'll pretty much be all that we need to do on the dress itself. So hopefully it'll go together pretty smoothly, and then as new little steps come up, I'll pop it onto the camera. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So I have the skirt sewn together at the sides, and then I finished off this edge in that will end up being the center back, because that seam allowance will end up being open, so I need both of those edges to be finished. I also overlocked the side seams. Then I've pinned the ruffle on, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and put the ruffle on before I put the skirt together. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the ruffle edge, because it's tulle, I'm not going to worry about hemming it or any of that, but I'm going to take the edge to where the seam will actually be. So it's not going to the edge of the fabric, because when I sew the edge of the fabric for the center back seam, I don't want this ruffle to be sewn into that seam. Might be kind of hard. Oh, there we go. Some sparkles will show. So I don't want that caught in the back seam. So I'm taking the ruffle to where the seam will be rather than covering the seam allowance. So I'm going to put this edge of the ruffle on, then I'll gather the next one and put it on as well. So it will end up being about here, because I want the ruffles to overlap a little bit. So I'll get that ruffle on as well, and then that will get the skirt part ready before we move on to the bodice. So we're in the process of putting the little bodice pieces together. So here is the one with the real fabric. I did not film this because this fabric frays so easily, and I had to really concentrate and be really careful about getting these seams together and not having it fall apart. So we have it all put together. I did press the seams open. So this is the bodice of the fabric. Then on the facing pieces, it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing because it's just a plain fabric. So I just wanted to put a note in here real quick that when you're going to attach a side front that has the bust shape to the center front that doesn't really have that same exact shape, it does help to do some stay stitching here and then just give it a little tug to kind of create that curve. And what that will do, and I always like to start at the bottom edge, so I'll put it in the machine from the bottom here, and when it comes up, I'll just kind of angle this around and pivot on my needle to bring it up and go around the corner of the bust there and then back up to the top. But if you don't do this stay stitching, sometimes it's really hard to get that to fit. Also, I'm not going to pin it. I never pin these tiny little corners. I'm just going to lay it in and turn it as I bring those edges together. So I'm going to start here and get my threads out of the way, and let's see if we can angle the camera down so you can see a little bit better. Alright, I'll try to keep my fingers out of the way, but I put it in my machine and I did back tack just a couple stitches. So now as I sew, I'm not pinning it. I'm going to come up to where these two lines start to separate, meaning the edges of my fabric. So I'm coming up to here. Now I'm going to lightly lift my foot and lightly start to turn that top fabric in. So let's see, I'm bringing it over. Then I'm only going to do a couple stitches. Then I'm going to lift. And it is a little aggravating that my foot does not stay up. So I might have to hold it with my finger. Then I'm going to pull this again, do a couple more stitches. Then I'm going to continue, and I'm just doing a couple stitches each time I maneuver. I'm not trying to do it quickly. I'm just taking my time to do a couple stitches at a time. And as you can see, my edge is coming to where the edge of my seam for this fabric and the edge of the seam for the underneath fabric is pretty close together. So now we're just going to come in. And I'm only worried about matching up my seam line, not all that seam allowance. So now we'll bring our thread out. Alright, and then here's what it ends up looking like. So there we go. And it is a pretty close match right here, not too bad. So it's just kind of a way to help those pieces fit together a little bit better. And then we'll trim away all these threads we don't need. Then, to help all this lay a little bit more flat, I'm going to snip a small triangle out of the side pieces to get rid of some of that excess fabric, and then I will make a snip on the other side, but not create triangles, just snips, because that will naturally open up. So then when I press it flat, my seam is going to be able to open up a little bit easier. So there we go. So then I'll just press all this. I'll usually press from this direction down to the tip of the bust and press that flat. Then I'll start from the hem and press up towards the tip of the bust from this direction. I don't try to press over the curve. I just kind of press to the curve and then press to the curve to open up those seam allowances. And then that's what our side will look like. So now I'll go ahead and do the other side and then put the back pieces on there as well. Now with my facing and my bodice pinned together with right sides together, I am going to sew only along the top edge. I just think that'll be easier because I'm sewing for Kadira. She's very small. She has a very small waist. And so in order to have a lot more working room to get the skirt fit to the bodice, I don't want to have these edges sewn down because then it's harder to fit it in there. So if I only do the top edge, then I can open it up a little bit more to go ahead and get the skirt attached to that. But I'm going to go ahead and do the top edge, and then I will gather the skirt, here we go, to fit the edge of that bodice. So we'll gather that and sew with the skirt right side to the bodice right side, sew that in. Then I'll go ahead and sew down these edges so that that seam matches up with the edge of my fabric. Also, I am going to turn this in when I sew it on so that it will be a nice folded edge inside the bodice here, because then this will be part of the seam, and then I'm going to have a little bit of an opening to get it on the doll itself. So yeah, so that's my next step, is to put the top edge together and then gather this and fit it to the bodice. And here is our finished little strapless gown with the 2 layers of ruffle. And then the back, I just need to put the closures on, so I will do that when I fit it to the doll. So here's how it looks. The inside is just turned under and stitched in place. So hopefully when I put it on, a lot of this facing won't roll up and show. Then I'm not sure, I may also use some of the gold seam binding to put a belt on that would match this part, but I'm not sure yet. So here's how the little gown looks. I'm going to put it on the doll and we'll see how it looks on her. So here's just a reminder for anyone who's not familiar with the doll that this dress is going to be for. And I was very tickled to find out that she can wear rainbow high clothing, and the shoes even work pretty good. So I think I mentioned it in another video. But anyway, I was really glad that while she's waiting for me to sew some things for her, she doesn't have to be naked. So let's go ahead and put this gown on her and see how it looks. And here is the little dress once it's on the doll. So it fits her pretty well. I did think that my choice of fabric isn't really what I would have wanted. This ended up being too heavy, so it was hard to gather here. I had to take it out a couple times. I had to serge it in order to get it to stop raveling, and yeah, it was kind of a mess. And then the top didn't go together as crisply as I would like once it was on her. So I did put small, let's see if we can get the light here to show, small elastic bands here and here as shoulder straps, just to kind of keep it up. But it's not terrible. So, and it does fit her well. So the fit is good. I think it was just the fabric choice in how kind of lumpy it is, because the fabric is really thick. But we have the dress done, and now we need to move on to the coat. To start off on the coat, I'm going to take my 2 layers of tulle and I'm going to sandwich them between 2 layers of the creamy colored cotton. So we're going to sandwich this here and then sew around the edge, and then when I flip it right side out, the tulle will be on the outside. So I'm going to be doing that on the collar and just going all the way around the outside edge. And then once I get it right side out, I will put some stay stitching on the bottom neck edge of the collar so that I can get that ready to place. So here we go. So we're just gonna pin this together So it's ready to go through the machine. All right. Then on my vinyl sections, the first order of business will be to gather the top of the center back to match the size of the yoke and to sew those together. Then I will be sewing the side back to the back pieces on both sides. Then I will be taking the front sections and sewing that to my side fronts. So that's just kind of what I'm going to start with, is just lining up all these pieces and putting them together in the right order. And yeah, so then, and I'll also do some basting along the top of the sleeves so they'll be easier to fit inside. Then on my facing, since I learned the hard way that this fabric is terrible to work with, I'm going to be putting the front on the side fronts the same way, but I am going to be finishing a lot of these edges just to keep it from raveling, because this is the facing that will show in the coat. So I'm going to have to do some finishing on these, and then once those are put together, then they'll be put together at the shoulder, so that's ready to go into the coat. But that's going to take a lot of overlock stitching, because that fabric will just fall apart, as I learned in the dress. So that's kind of what we're working on first, and once we get some of that basic stuff done, we'll come back and take a look at it. It's just going to be a lot of seams that need to go together, so that's kind of the order we'll do it, and then we'll take a look at the pieces. And here is our finished little outfit. I got to sewing and then I was like really into it, and I totally forgot to turn my camera back on. So anyway, so here is the total outfit all finished. This silver piece that you're seeing around her waist is just part of the doll stand. So here's the gown with the coat, and this is how the coat looks when it's done. So it just kind of has a little tail here, and then it has top stitching along the back and down the sides. And yeah, some of the parts did not go together as well as I would like. I think part of it was because I was dealing with this fabric as the lining. I just didn't feel like recutting out more facing, so I just went ahead and used it, because that way in the flare the gold would still show. So yeah, so here is our beautiful little Kadira with her specialty outfit, with the big collar and the flared coat with just the little wrap. It's a little uneven there again, though. I think a lot of it was just trying to get all the pieces to match. And yeah, so it's not a real fun pattern to sew. So if you're brave and you want to give it a whirl, then this is what mine turned out like. But I do like the color. I like this creamy, buttery creamy color. And then I like the gold. So, and then I did restring her. She was, I got her second hand, so she was really floppy. She just kept falling on the stand. So part of, a good part of my evening was to take her apart and restring her, and mainly because I couldn't get the jacket on without taking off her hands. But the elastic was so worn out that there wasn't a lot of pull in it, and then her legs were so floppy, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and restring her. So we got that done, so she's in a lot better shape now. She stands really well, and the elastic is nice and tight, and yeah, so she's ready to be on display with her new little dress. And yeah, so I like how it turned out, and I love the little butterfly. Let's see if they'll show. She has little butterfly shoes that are actually rainbow high shoes, but they work. And I do have shoes for her, but they're in a box somewhere. So I thought, well, she was wearing these rainbow high ones, so she can just keep wearing that. So here is the Kadira gown, like the ruffled gown, and the long cutaway jacket with the big collar. This is what it looks like when it's done. I didn't really pleat this a whole lot just because I have that tool, and if you try to iron that a lot, it'll melt. But yeah, I still like how it looks. I like how it kind of just poofs her hair up, and that's the finished outfit. So thanks for coming along, and sorry I forgot to show a bunch more of actually putting the jacket together, but this way I didn't lose my sanity while you were watching. So until next time, happy sewing. Bye.